I call upon Wing Commander Sudarshan ji to come up to the stage to launch the book. Wing Commander Sudarshan ji has come all the way from Bangalore for the Lit Fest. A quick reminder that our Western Ghats Lit Fest is being live streamed in Prachyam, Dinamalar and Swarajya. Do share the link with your family and friends.
So, Sadar Pranam to this August Assembly once again, and thank you Varanda Club for allotting a session, complete session on Northeast. This is in fact, even I am seeing for the first time, and this was really much needed, very much needed. Northeast has been really neglected in terms of our Puranik Itihasa. I being a researcher on Kurukshetra, I know the linkages, many of those linkages which Manushi was indicating at. Now let's come to today's session. We have only 30 minutes with us, and we have the book launch. So I will give you a quick glance of few snippets from Dwarka that I received a request, multiple requests yesterday to showcase some of the details of Dwarka that I was discussing. But prior to that, as a tribute to what Dr. Ranganathan had earlier mentioned today, and as a tribute to people like Madam Kutti, I will share one story from my own life, something that I have seen with my own eyes. And why I am sharing this story with you is we are discussing on cultural heritage, about the antiquity of this nation, about Bharata's civilization. This was the year 2011, and I had started only 2 years then my research on the Sri Jagannath culture. During my research, I was trying to identify the geographical location which is mentioned in Skanda Puran or Niladri Mahodaya or the Padma Puran, from where Jagannath's origination happened, and also bit in Mahabharata. So after a lot of search, I stumbled upon a place. The place is named by a small town called Kantilo in the Nayagarh district of Orissa. This is around 100 odd kilometers from Bhubaneswar. And the place that came out to be, it is on the Mahanadi Valley, okay? In Orissa, there are two prime valleys, the Mahanadi Valley and the Prachi Valley, where ancient civilization used to, foster. And Mahanadi Valley was a place which had a lot of Vishnu worshipping happening over there. So obviously, which is indicating of the fact stated in the Puranic Itihasa. I reached that place with my wife and kid. My kid was very naughty at that time, and he was 5 years old. And the temple, ancient temple, it was located on a hilltop, on a very high hilltop, and surrounded by dense forest. It was there in the middle of the forest, and there was no road to capture. I went on an Indica with a lot of risk along with my family. The tires were skidding also on the way, many a times. And even today, I get goosebumps when I remember that incident. So I reached there. My kid started running around, and as it happens, his nails got stuck in a stone, and the nails got peeled off. So we were all nervous. He was bleeding profusely. So the Panditji in Orissa, they call him Nana. So the Nana assured me in his local language, and he went inside the jungle. Around after 15-20 minutes, he came back doing like this, जैसे खैनी खाते हैं वैसे करते हुए वापस आया with some jari booty. So I thought that, I don't know what would be. I said, okay, fine, let us try, because you don't have any medical facility within 100 kilometers of this place. It was that, that situation. He pasted it, and he said, just wait for some time. Would you believe me? I mean, I'm quoting it on camera, so I'm not going to, share something, a bluff over here. In around 20 to 25 minutes, the wound healed like as if nothing has happened. We just washed it off with the water and everything was fine. And I asked him, what was it? What could it be? Any guesses what it could be? Any guesses? No. Vishalyakarani. The 4 herbs that came with Dronagiri, which Hanumanji brought. Vishalyakarani. And there is a dense vegetation of Vishalyakarani in that jungle. That is our country. That is Bharat. So, this is one I wanted to share. The other, thing that I want to share with you, the 2 small anecdotes. As a researcher from Kurukshetra, I am writing a book on Kurukshetra, which is slated to come out somewhere on March, April next year. And one of the research findings is, and which has not been reported in any of the history texts right now, and not even on social media, let me tell you. One of the key destinations in Kurukshetra is the Brahma Sarovar. Many of you might have heard of it. Some say that it was created by Bhargav Parshuram. Some say Brahma created the universe out of that. But what is not reported, not even in the district gazetteer of the Haryana government, that there is a fort. There is a fort at the backyard of the Sarovar. The remains of that fort, particularly the wall, boundary wall, is still there. And that fort was built by Alamgir Aurangzeb. You know for what purpose? To shoot at the devotees who would come for visiting Brahma Sarovar. And it was made in a way, because Brahma Sarovar, within 200 meters of Brahma Sarovar is Sanyet Sarovar. And these 2 lakes are so much of religious sanctity, I can't tell you, as per the Puranic texts. Anybody coming in those 2 places will be shot at. That was the only purpose with which this fort was built. Then there is Sanyet Sarovar, just next to it. Mahabharata says that this is the place in which Sri Krishna, Devki Putra Krishna, met for the second and the last time Nand Baba and Yashoda Maiya on a solar eclipse day in Kurukshetra, in Sanyet Sarovar. Because Sanyet Sarovar is famous for the solar eclipse. Anybody taking a bath on the solar eclipse day will attain the piousness of attending or conducting 1000 Ashwamedh Yagyas. So obviously, it's very highly venerated. Now, when you look at that, incident which is mentioned in Mahabharata, so somewhere around 1630s or 40s, I don't remember the exact year, Akbar was camping on Sanyet Sarovar on a mission, and the sadhus, and solar eclipse day was there, and the sadhus had, large number of sadhus had gathered over there for the dip for solar eclipse. There was some fight, and this episode is mentioned in Akbarnama by Abul Fazl, and there is a drawing in Akbarnama on this massacre. And Akbar used that event, and he goes on to mention that the fights between sadhus was happening. So in order to contain the security of the place, he ordered his Mughal soldiers to butcher the sadhus in cold blood. So an estimated 10,000 sadhus were murdered on the solar eclipse day in Sanyet Sarovar. So these kind of histories, since we are talking of our culture constantly, of our cultural heritage, the antiquity, the narratives, I thought that this is the right session, since it is speaking of narratives mentioned by Sumedha ji, to share these stories, what we are and what has been suppressed. With that, I will quickly take you through something. Thoda sa. I mean, what is cultural heritage I've just captured over here, and as you can see, it's tangible and intangible. Intangible with the folk dances, the art forms, the skill sets of the artisans, traditional festivals, and tangible heritage is the built heritage, then the coins, manuscripts, ancient text, iconography. What comprises typically of cultural heritage and what we should look at? So oceanography, archaeology, numismatics, which is the study of coins, iconography, study of sculptures, epigraphy, study of manuscripts and inscription, the historicity or antiquity of that place, and of course, reading our Puranic Itihasa. My personal interest has been in archaeology and epigraphy, so I typically work on these areas. Now this is on Konark. I will just, this is the history of Konark, but what I'll show you is what many people are not being told in the, whenever they visit Konark and on temple architecture. So this digital diagram that you see is what Konark used to actually look like. And to be very candid, the middle structure is standing today, which was stuffed with sand, okay, sand and iron clamps in 1902 by the British engineers so that it can survive. And last year, ASI, after a lot of deliberation, has started working on a project to take out the sand from Konark because it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and make some alternative technological arrangements to ensure that this is called Jagmohan. The Jagmohan is, thrown open to public. It's beautiful inside. And what you can see is the Garbhagriha, the Antarnala, and the kitchen, the Mandapa. Now this is very important. This is a cross-sectional drawing, you can say, of the entire complex. But what is important, why I wanted to share this with you, is the Jagmohan, which is standing today, which is stuffed with sand on which ASI is working. It is around 80 feet. But why it is important is this is the only found sketch drawn by James Ferguson, who was an epigraphist with ASI, and in 1837 CE. And you can see at the back the Garbhagriha or the Viman or the Deul, which is standing at 220 feet. The southern part of the Viman was surviving at that point of time. So, and you can see the Surya on horse, the Surya on chariot, then there is a Maya Devi temple, the kitchen, the horses. I'll show you a bit of it, how it is linked to our Puranic Itihasa. So this is a drone picture and a little description of what all structures are there. And then, now this is very beautiful, the iconography. Why I chose to share this with all of you is, you look at the war elephants, we know of the Chaturangi Sena that our kings used to have in the Puranic times or even in the medieval times. So you look at the war elephant, how it is trampling a warrior, you see, and you look at the war stallion, how it is trampling another warrior. They were trained to kill. These animals were trained to kill. And the elephants, particularly of the Orisen kings, the Kalingan kings, were very famous. That is why the Kalingan kings were also called Gajapatis to some extent. And these war elephants were used in the Kurukshetra war also. They participated. In fact, for that matter, Bhagadatta, the son of Narakasur, his elephant, Bhagadatta was killed by Arjun, but when he participated in the war, his elephant gave a very tough time to the Pandavas. Okay, and of course we know Alexander, the problem or the challenges he faced and his army's fear of facing Porus. Porus had only some 800 elephants, if I correctly remember, but the ferocity of those elephants created so much of fear in the minds of the Greek soldiers that they didn't want to move ahead when they heard that the Mahapadma Nanda, the last ruler of the Nanda dynasty, who was defeated by Chandragupta Maurya later on. Mahapadma Nanda had a brigade of 1 lakh elephants, and majority of these elephants came from the Kalingan kings. And as I said, that Prag Jyotishpur Assam elephants were also participating in the Kurukshetra war. This is the time wheel. This is the wheel, famous wheel of the Sun Temple. I just picked it up. It's the same picture which was showcased by Pradhan Mantri ji, Narendra Modi ji. But why I picked up so that you people could understand and have a look. It's self-explanatory of how this wheel was carved to capture the time throughout a day. Many of you must be aware that there are jantar mantars in many of the cities of India like Jaipur or Delhi, which were used for this thing. And this is on Dwarka. Bas 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. Yeah. So this is, I wanted to show you of Dwarka that I was speaking of the satellite analog technology. So you can see the walls of Dwarka that I was mentioning about the Puranic description that was referred by Dr. Rao, okay? And as you can see, it's a lotus form. There are many forms which have come out after study, and ships' hulls are there. Just take a look, and you'll understand what is we have underwater, which needs to be explored. This is my personal collection, and this is a ship anchor, which was excavated by Dr. Rao during his excavation in Dwarka. So this is a 4000 BCE dated ship anchor. Okay, this is found from Dwarka. This is kept in one of the museums in Kurukshetra, but sadly people do not know about these stuff that are being maintained and kept. This is another, ancient city. We were talking of, Manoshi was also talking of Harshavardhan, the Pushyavati dynasty, Bhaskar Barman. So this is the capital city, the ruins of the capital city of the Pushyavati dynasty, the city that was built by Harshavardhan and his father Rajavardhan. And this is ancient Thaneshwar, which was also plundered by Mahmud of Ghaznavi. This place is called Harshka Tila. It is around 22 yards, which was excavated by ASI. And lot still remains to be excavated. So if we start, ASI starts excavation, lot many things will come out. Okay, thank you Veranda Club for the time. And now I would request Sumedha ji to come on stage, and let's have a quick discussion on the book. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, take it. I'll take from here. I'll take from here. You keep it for the audience if anybody has a question. I'll keep it. So, welcome Sumedha ji once again. And regarding your book, I was going through it yesterday. It mostly speaks about various narratives that you have tried to highlight. So, I have two questions for you and for the audience to understand a bit more. One is, if you can tell us in brief a little about your book, what it primarily consists of. And secondly, at least two narratives that you have covered in the larger context, if you can take us through.
Thank you. Vanakkam to everyone, and namaskaram. Am I audible? Yes, okay. So, this is a bit of a different book. All of you, since yesterday, have been seeing books which are history. This is not history. This is historical fiction. So, it is historical fiction which hangs on the facts of history, but it has a lot of people, a lot of stories which are not really history. So, why do we need the genre of historical fiction? Because it is a story which is much easier for people to understand. So, as Surya has mentioned, there are many narratives which are wrong about Indian history. In this book, I have tried to deal with all of them. A little bit about myself will also tell you why I wrote this book and what was the purpose of a number of things inside it. So I am a lapsed communist. I am a product of Delhi University in the 80s. And I was more communist than the SFI. But very soon I listened to them. I listened to what they were saying and I would ask them a few questions and they would not answer. So they said that Hindus do all these wrong things and they are communal. So I said, if Muslims do the same thing, why are they not communal? So, there was no answer to that. I was disillusioned. I was disillusioned by the SFI, and then I did not find in my own life, in my own upbringing, the kind of things they said about Hindu society. My mother was not a regressive woman. I was not brought up inside Parda. Nobody discriminated against me. So there was this huge disjunction between what my professors tried to teach me in Delhi University and what I saw in my own life. And that led to a number of questions. Thankfully, I come from a family where, I was reading Sahitya Academy translations when I was in school. So I had a good idea of pan-Indian culture. I joined the civil services, I worked as a commissioner income tax, and then I decided to go back to my first love, which is the Mauryans. So the Mauryans are the basis of this book. And why are the Mauryans important? Because I think they are the prototype of the modern Indian state. One wrong narrative, the one you have asked me about, is that India was never a country. So Bharat, India, was always a country for a very long time civilizationally. Politically, it was for the first time that Chandragupta Maurya, with his preceptor Kautilya, he made this entire country into, this entire landmass into one kingdom. And that kingdom was the kingdom of Bharat. The Mauryans also use the word Jambu Dweep for their, and the Bharat Khande, Jambu Dweepe. So they also use the word Jambu Dweep. Ashok has used it in one of his inscriptions to describe this landmass. So I feel that in exploring the Mauryans, I explore a lot of the roots of the India that we have today. And I call myself an unofficial ambassador from the kingdom of the Mauryans, the court of Chandragupta Maurya, to modern India. I want everyone to see the wonder that was India, and not in the way that A.L. Basham has described it, but in the way that our own original sources described it. Now, Surya had a very interesting list over here of what kind of things are there that through which we learn history. And many of those are the evidence through which we understand history. Now, a bit about this book. This book, the protagonist is a woman. Who is she? She's a spy. She's a spy in the pay of Chanakya. She works for the Mauryan kingdom. The story starts just after Chandragupta Maurya has taken over from the Nandas, and he has to establish his fledgling kingdom. And this spy network, which is the Urna Nabhi, which is the spider's web across the entire empire. That is why this book is called Urnabhi. It is a tadbhav of Urna Nabhi, a Sanskrit word for spider's web, as you would know. So the idea is to explore through her eyes, not just how the kingdom was established, but what was the position of women, what was society like, and a 360-degree view of ancient Indian society. So one of the wrong narratives that you had asked me about is the thing about India never being a country. The second one is one which hits me directly. What was the position of women in the past? Were they actually in need of rescue? Were they actually in need of being told by some other alien culture, no, this is the way you should behave, you poor things, you are just being demeaned, humiliated, etc. So there is a whole school of Marxist feminists who have spent all their time doing this. I write a lot of stuff debunking whatever they have written, and they are wrong on evidence, they are wrong on understanding, they are wrong on interpretation. They use the false Aryan invasion theory to prove their points. So on whatever basis you want to take, they have not got the backing for the kind of things they say. But tell me something, how many people, this hall is a different matter, but how many people, average people in the country are interested in all this? Very few. So how do you tell them all this? By writing books, by writing stories, which they will find very easy to read. And in this book, I have exemplified all these threads of narratives that we are talking about, that we have been talking about. Also about our dharma. What was Hindu dharma all about? Is it really that kind of, dark hole, that kind of regressive, superstitious religion that Christianity and Islam tells us? No. So I say no. But how do I prove it? What is the way in which this can be conveyed to people? So that is what I have tried in this book. Through a description, not just it's a fast moving spy thriller, but the basis is the correction of a lot of wrong historical narratives which have taken root everywhere. And let me tell you, I live in Geneva in Switzerland, and I talk to a lot of international audiences about this book. So one, they are unwilling to believe that at least 2300 years ago, such a kingdom existed in India. So they say it's all lies. Two, whatever is written in the book, no, you have misrepresented the position of women. It was not like this. So because what is Mr. Casey? She is a free agent. She is a courtesan of that time, a Ganika of that time. And Ganikas of that time were, sampann with the 64 arts. They used to act as diplomats. They used to act as spies. They used to act as cultural nodes of disseminating all kinds of knowledge. So all this really needs to be told to people, not just in terms of hard facts, but in terms of books which are stories, so that you can hang these important things on historical facts and make it interesting for people. Do you have any other question?
Yeah, you can talk for another 5 minutes. You can.
No, actually, I don't know, probably none of you would have read the book, so maybe I can just describe it for you. So it's a trilogy. The first one is called The Story of a Mauryan Dancing Girl. The second one is called Chanakya Scribe, because my protagonist becomes an assistant of Acharya Chanakya. And the third one, which is upcoming, is called The Waters of the Mauryans, because during the Mauryan times, there was a great paucity of water and a huge famine. And how did the state deal with it? What did the state do? There are still some extant waterworks in Girnar, which were made by Chandragupta Maurya. And there are some inscriptions which tell you who made them. It was Pushyagupta, one of his viceroys, who had made that water body to provide water to all the area around Girnar. So the third one is going to be based on that. If you read these three books, you will get a very perfect idea of the Mauryan period, how Chandragupta Maurya established his empire, how it was extended, and what were the social, religious, political, international, and again, I must repeat myself, a 360-degree view of ancient India. So I would invite you to read it and, learn more about the Mauryan past.
So just to add on to your international audience, the reference that you made that they are unwilling to accept, I just want to share an anecdote. In 2005, when I was staying in France, I was staying in Marseille for a few months on a training, and I was interacting with a few French students, and I wanted to understand. Oh, you are from Inde. Yeah, in French they call it Inde. So I asked them that what do you know about Inde? So they told me something which many of us today know, that it is a land of snake charmers. That's what officially was taught in the French textbooks in the schools, land of snake charmers. So when you have that kind of curriculum getting into it, so these are the same people who have grown up and you have been interacting with them, and that becomes as a cultural shock.
All of you would have read many of Rajiv Malhotra's books. So in one of his books, when he's talked about Sanskrit and he's talked about English, and he has talked about the way English has taken over what all of our cultural modes also. So he had given the idea of Sanskritizing English. At the same time, I have also been thinking of that. So if you read these books, you will find so many Sanskrit words, but it was a great fight. Because I wanted to put in Sanskrit words, my publisher did not. So we had 13 rounds of editing, and some of them stay. The point I'm making is, again, in Rome, I had a book reading with 2 or 3 British women who attended the reading. They came up to me after that and said, what have you done with English? This is not English. What are all these words over here? And I mean, I cannot even recognize that this is English. So there was a German woman over there who said, yeah, okay, it's fine. English is not my first language either. And Sanskrit is, I don't know it, but I am ready to understand the story. I am ready to understand it. If I can read Latin or English or any other language, French, then why can't you also accept a few of the Sanskrit words or Hindi words which are used here simply because they are untranslatable? They cannot be translated. And you have to use those original words so that the impression of that period, a correct impression, and the culture of that period really comes through. So again, I've tried to do a lot of things with this book, and I would love it if people would read it and tell me whether these things have really happened or not. Thank you.
Another interesting story. Very recently, many of you must be knowing that Orissa has emerged as a hockey, our national hockey hub, right? We have the World Cup hockey is being hosted over there. And as a part of INTAC, one of my colleagues was from Orissa, the Bhubaneswar chapter. He was given the responsibility of taking, because Bhubaneswar is a temple city, right? And he was given the responsibility for taking around the Belgium team, with Belgium hockey team, with entire crew of there. So they were standing at the Parshurameshwara temple, one of the most oldest temples of Orissa, 6th century. And it has Saptamatrikas, and it has panel, Navagraha panel on the door jamb, which is not Navagraha but Ashtagraha. That's the only temple in Orissa with Ashtagraha. So, you know, they were looking, everything, understanding and looking, and then after some time, some of them getting a bit jittery, they come to my friend and ask them that, where are those erotic structures, erotic iconography? So then he diverts again, but then these people again come back. Where are those? You know, they are very interested in it. And my friend gets agitated. So he turns around and he tells them that, listen, you know when this temple was made? This was in 6th century CE. That was the time when your ancestors were wearing skins of animals and hunting in the jungles. And our ancestors were building this temple. So that's the kind of expression, that's the kind of thought process, you know, these people still carry. So any questions from the audience? Most welcome, please.
What would be your sources for something like this? Would you? Okay. I mean, some basic source would be from a.
So, you know, there is a 5th century CE Sanskrit play called the Mudra Rakshas.
Mudra
Mudra
Rakshas, of
Rakshas.
course, of course.
So I call my book the sequel to Mudra Rakshas. So if you read Mudra Rakshas, a lot of the characters are here. And the heroine is called Misra Kesi. Misra Kesi is from the Natya Shastra. The two Natyanganas who were created by Brahma. So Misra Kesi and Sukesi are from there. Misra Kesi is also from Kalidas because she is the one who rescues Shakuntala. So there are a lot of, see, these are the fictional literary things, but the historical references, now there are Sanskrit sources, there are Greek sources, there are Roman sources, then there are Sanskrit, Buddhist and Jain sources, and Prakrit, Buddhist and Jain sources. There are also the Jatak tales, the Ashok Vadan, the Deep Vadan, and other than that, Ashokan inscriptions.
Is she a
And-
Vishkanya?
Sorry.
Is she a Vishkanya?
I don't want to give any spoilers. I don't want to give any spoilers.
I was thinking of asking this. I was
No
just thinking of
spoilers,
asking
please.
this.
No spoilers, please.
because Chanakya
But
is-
if you read
Chanakya-
the Mudra Rakshas, then you can get a bit of the story, but please, those spoilers. And I have also, you see, I read all original sources, so Mauryan inscriptions, then a lot of the plays of Bhas, because Bhas lived somewhere around the Mauryan period. So for understanding the character of the women and the men, I have used the plays of Bhas. And see, I was born in Patliputra or modern Patna. So a lot of that history, a lot of the archaeological remains I have grown up with. A lot of those archaeological remains, the Ashokan pillars, they are, so we do have a lot of information about the Mauryans, but it's a very hotly contested terrain. Information is there, but it's so long back that you have to take a very kind of judicious view about everything. But evidence is all, and I pride myself that you open any book, any page, ask me where I have got that particular fact from, and I will be able to tell you. So
And-
I think that is my USP as a historical fiction writer.
In fact, just to add on to us, since you mentioned the Mauryan and the Ashokan pillars, so one of the very wrong history that has been taught to us is the Kalingan War. We discussed about it yesterday in lot. Was fought in Kalinga, and the war field. Even I grew up with those understanding, and I have been to that place as well. It is called Dholi,
Dholagiri, yeah.
Dholgiri or
Dholagiri,
Dholi, this thing. There is an Ashokan inscription over there, and it is being widely preached even today that the battle was fought on the banks of the, Daya River. The Daya River is flowing there. It's banks of Daya River. On 2 or 3 days, and it's just finished, and huge number of Kalingans were killed. But the actual history is the Kalingan War was actually fought for 6 to 7 years' time, and it was not fought on the banks of Daya River, and the Daya River did not turn red, and and it was actually fought much interior in the Kalingan territory. So
No, so let me add a little bit of depth to that. Ashok was a viceroy for his father Bindusar.
Yes.
And when he was a viceroy, there was an uprising in Kaling. Kaling was not outside the Mauryan Empire at the time, but already inside. We know this because of Kharavela's inscription, which is also found over there. So this whole thing has been blown up not just by historians, by dear great Ashok himself.
Yes.
Because he was a megalomaniac. You read those inscriptions, it's all about I, me, myself. So not only has he
Yes.
blown it up, but historians have blown it up. So Kaling was a local uprising of one region of the Mauryan Empire, which was then suppressed by Ashok as a viceroy, and later he made up his own stories. He was already a Buddhist by that time. But these stories, this hagiography has been built up. So, those dead white men who wrote the sacred books of the East. So these dead white men have a lot to say about Buddhism, which is very good. Hinduism, which is very bad. So they built up Ashok as the good Buddhist great king against all the other bad Hindu kings. There's so much wrong over here that you need a lot of books on this. Unfortunately, it is only the other side which is writing books upon books on Ashok. Patrick Olivelle is the latest to write another hagiography of Ashok after Nayanjot Lahiri, who honestly speaking is one of the best historians of the Mauryan period today. I will give her that much. But she has also written a hagiography of Ashok. Patrick Olivelle has written a hagiography of Ashok. No one has written one of Chandragupta, but I'm going to do so.
Just to add on to her, for records and for your information also, Ashok murdered in cold blood 10,000 Ajivikas right in Bodh Gaya. Right in Bodh Gaya he murdered.
Can I stop you there, Surya? Taranath's account is what this is based on. Taranath wrote in the 17th century. So we should take this with a pinch of salt. Because Taranath was not to be relied on. Now Ashok is widely said to be very, very fierce and very, very cruel. But Taranath's accounts, because he wrote in the 17th century of something which happened 2000 years ago, let's take it with a pinch of salt.
But we come across other, if I correctly remember, R.C. Mazumdar also shared
The
a
main,
footnote.
the original source is Taranath.
Is
The
it?
original source of all this
Okay,
is Taranath.
Anyways,
So
no
we have to
problem, but
take
it's for
Taranath
sure
with
that,
a
it
pinch
has
of
been-
salt. He was supposed, widely said to be very, very cruel, and he fought with all his brothers to be the king. It was only Tissa who he let him live. He fought with all the others. Kunal became blind. So yes, there's no doubt, Surya, that he was a very,
He
very
killed 100
cruel person.
100
Yeah.
of his brothers.
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No.
And actually, I have written a lot in the Swarajya magazine about Ashok and the Mauryans. So Ashoka the not so great, please read it. It's there in Swarajya magazine. Yes. So, he was the Rahul Gandhi of his times. His father and grandfather gave him a big kingdom and he just drove it to the ground. The parallels between Ashok and Rahul Gandhi are just too much to miss.
And all his inscriptions are blown up. As
Yeah,
he, right? Actually,
yeah, and
he said, all
he is
blown up.
said to be the father of the welfare state. Now, whatever is written in his inscriptions about the welfare of the people is the Indic political science theory. You read the Arthashastra, you read those inscriptions, it's like parallel, absolute, copy of each other. You were saying something?
Now online you'll have Congress saying Rahul Ashoka the Great.
I withdraw that then. Oh.
All his inscriptions were blown up. He placed one inscription in Dhalgiri, Ashokan edict that is mentioned today, and then he placed all his inscriptions, some of his inscriptions in the northwest frontier, so that any invader coming in can have a look at the inscription and become fearful that I have murdered so many people in Kalinga. And if you look at the inscriptions and scriptures and historical evidences, Kalinga did not even have that kind of population at that point of time. Even if you put Kalinga and Utkal and Toshali, everything put together, because the Odisha that we know today was actually spread into two parts. One was Utkal, one was Kalinga.
Yeah, so yesterday you didn't want to put the Mauryans in the nation builders. I'm sure it was because of the impression of Ashok. But Ashok was the last and the worst Mauryan. It was Chandragupta and Bindusar, who were the real Mauryans. So we should just pull down Ashok and build up Chandragupta and remember that, we are the modern Mauryans. Yeah, so, you call it the Ashok Chakra, but that Chakra is the Dharma Chakra. That Chakra appears in the Rig Veda also. That is the Chakra of Dharma. So it has been found in Mauryan remains, and somehow all Mauryan remains are ascribed to Ashok. That's not true, because there are many, and it can also be ascribed to his father or his grandfather, because some of the titles that they used, they were the same. Piyadasi, for example. Chandragupta was also called Piyadasi, Ashok was also called Piyadasi. But it was on the basis of this Piyadasi, which was found in Sri Lanka, that Ashok and his grandfather Chandragupta were given the chronology that we have today, and that the whole mainstream narrative has been put in place. But remember that everything that is said to be done by Ashok was not done by Ashok. Most of it was done by Chandragupta. Ashok spent his time unraveling it.
And yeah, you are right, Sumedha ji. Many of these titles, I was discussing with Manushi also in Indraprastha talks. Kharavela, you mentioned Kharavela. So Kharavela, being a Jain ruler, the legendary Jain ruler, he assumed the title of Mega Vahana Aira Kharavela. So Mega Vahana Aira is also another title which is used in Northeast. So I was, so in ancient India or medieval India, many of these titles have been used
and
parallelly.
They especially went in families. From father to son to grandson, they went in families. So it is very dangerous to assume that all of it has been done by one person. You need some corroborating evidence for that. Yes, see, so many Vikramaadityas. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And let me tell you, there is one Vikramaditya who built the Krishna Janmabhoomi, Chandragupta Vikramaditya, in 400 CE. And that is the same temple that was destroyed by Mahmud of Ghazni. So in Ghazni, when he comes to Janmabhoomi, Katra Keshav Dev, for the destruction, his historian Udbi writes that Sultan is so much enamored by looking at this structure that he says that only the genies could have built it, that too over a period of 200 years. That was the beauty of that temple. So with this, we'll,
Thank you.
Abhijit ji, please.
Mudra Rakshas does not have any mention of Greeks. But there is other evidence, from Roman and Greek sources, especially the biographers of Alexander. It is there that we get a mention of whatever happened with the Greeks. It is there, it is Justin who gives the story of all the things that we know about Chandragupta and that great fight between the Seleucids and the Mauryans, which actually ended in a Sandhi that happened near the Kubha river, which is now Afghanistan. So Chandragupta gave 500 elephants to Seleucus. Seleucus ceded a large part of Afghanistan and Pakistan, today's Pakistan, to Chandragupta, and also gave him his daughter to marry. And thus was inaugurated the era of Mauryan-Seleucid friendship. And we talked about trade routes and the way they are important. So this was all for the control of the trade route towards the Gulf and towards Europe. It was called the Hemvat Marg. So Seleucus wanted it, Chandragupta wanted it, They clashed for it, and there was finally a treaty signed. You know, it would be also interesting for if I could tell you how that Sandhi is an absolute theoretical exposition of the way Sandhis are explained in book 6 of the Arthashastra. Yeah, that's a very good, very interesting question, and I myself have written a couple of papers on that. Yes. No, so you know that is not so much of a thing, because you do know that Indica has been lost. And Megasthenes Indica only is there in excerpts from Strabo, Justin, etc. Then it was J.W. McCrindle who put together all these and tried to reconstruct the Indica. And then it was translated from Greek into English. So what we may have lost from the Indica, we don't know. There could be other stuff which is lost. Yes. But we must deal with this chronology question because it is a very big one. And on that is dependent the entire chronology of Indian history. So there is an inscription on which certain Egyptian and Greek kings are mentioned, and Syrian kings, and they have been dated to a particular time. That's an Ashokan inscription, and depending on that, the date for Ashok and then the date for Chandragupta has been put. But there are many holes in this. And if you are interested, I can send you that paper of mine where I have also myself written on this. So this is an area of further research. And it is it could just totally change the chronology of Indian history. A lot of people are working on this, so let's see.
Okay. Thank you.
I request Shri Surya Sarathi Roy ji to felicitate Srimati Sumedha ji.